Here you go. How you doing? Doing okay? I was wondering if you could take Hilda in there for a little while. And then I'll let Rupert, I'll see if I can get him to go upstairs. Well, I think that's, I don't know, leaving him outside for 2 hours might be a little much to expect. So. No, that's why I want to take Rupert upstairs to our bedroom. Yeah. Because he'll be fine up in the bedroom for 2 hours. Once he settles that.
Give him one of Rupert's treats here.
Oh. All right, I'll let you know when the coast is clear. You? Want to stay outside? You can stay outside if you want. It'll be a couple hours though. What do you think? All right, you stay up. All right, Steve, he wants to stay outside.
Howdy, ma'am.
Hello. I am tweaking things. So,
Tweak away.
all right, getting ready.
There's a little warning. It says your network bandwidth is low.
Yes, it is. That's one of the things I was trying to figure out how to cope with.
Gotcha. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. I am up at our cabin. A couple days ago, I had 20 megabits connection, and today it's 4. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of just kind of improv. And one of them is probably minimizing the video as much as possible. So I'll probably start the video and see how it goes. But, if things just get too funky, then I'm going to turn it off. So,
Like an old school
Just-
conference call.
yeah, exactly. And as a result, I'd suggest that everybody have their Canvas modules open to week 3. And luckily, when our guest speaker comes on, I can make him co-host, and hopefully it will run off of his connection then. So, cool. All right, 1 o'clock. And so far, all is well. So, how many people? We've got 12. Give it a few more minutes. I also recommend, there are a couple of videos that normally I would play during the class session. So I think we get to that point, through the modules, I will stop and ask you guys to watch it on your own and then come back. Because I particularly like Aaron Drapelin's one. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? First of all, how is everybody?
Doing well.
Yeah, so far so good.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Doing all right.
All right. We all survived the crash of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. It was amazing how
Oh,
many
no, I
parts
missed
of
it.
the web went down.
Didn't even know that.
Oh, you poor. Yes. Oh, good for you.
I used to do Facebook for my job when I was a public affairs in the Army. Since I've gotten out, I avoid Facebook as if it was the plague.
There you go. Yeah, I remember when I first thought, it's like, oh, it'd be such a cool idea to have social media, have that be your job. And, just making social media posts all day. But I tell you, the last, few years, it's just like, oh, that would be a little tiny piece of hell, if you ask me.
It's punishment.
So, yeah. So one thing that we're talking about this week is we're talking about finding the fun in what we do. And part of that is, being improvisational and kind of like, figuring out what to do with what you got. And so in a way, it's kind of a great example, having to cope with, oh, all of a sudden my bandwidth is super low. And, how do I cope with that? So it's not as much fun as I'd like, but we can see how it goes. So with that, I'm going to try starting the video. We'll see how well it does. If not, then I'm just going to, turn my video off and, do the lecture as normal. So, bye. Greetings from Trout Lake. So, anyway, did anybody have any questions or comments about last week? We talked about RFPs and proposals, and I know that was probably a lot of technical detail that you might not have been exposed to. So do you have any questions?
With RFPs, is there any like poor practices for taking a lot and just like casting out a wide net when applying for those?
Oh, well, one of the things with RFPs is they each have really specific requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So, whereas kind of like applying for jobs, you can go and, kind of like work up a resume and a standard cover letter and, pretty much do 10 jobs that are pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
With RFPs, you can use a model of a proposal that you've done in the past and kind of tweak it and stuff. But probably the worst thing is to just use, your standard template and not read through the RFP specifically to see exactly what they're looking for. Because they're going to go down and assign points by, kind of like how you meet the requirements.
Okay.
So that's.
It's like it's possible, but you're not likely to get a lot if you don't focus on one at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's competitive. One of the things about RFPs is in most cases, you can see who else you're competing against.
Mm.
So they have a list of, here are the companies that have put in proposals or, and after they submit, then you'd see that. So if you're a procrastinator like me, who's always putting in proposals kind of like in the last day, then I, would be able to say, oh, okay, here are all the ones that, I'm competing against. And it really kind of depends on, your skill set, the right, if you're the right fit for the company, skill set, price, and how well you answer their concerns and questions. So, it's a little bit of a crapshoot, so to speak. But, just do your best. I know when I was working for a consulting firm, I was putting in proposals to build websites against agencies and teams that lots of times were
Hear you.
Okay. I muted you, Chris. Anyway.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So you're competing against other agencies that, would have a big team and, it'd just be me on my end, working with basically as a solo developer. And so in many instances, it was the fact that they had a lot of resources that, got them the bid. Whereas if the project was pretty complex and stuff, they'd say, well, this single developer can't really handle that kind of a project on their own. But then too, one of the things I did get by an RFP was the Lake Oswego 100th anniversary centennial website. And, I kind of had the right approach. They had a limited budget. So the fact that they had a limited budget and they wanted to have a pretty small site made it a really good fit for me. So yeah, that's one area. Where else have I won RFPs? Oh, the Rose City
Can I
Yarn
mention
Crawl.
something?
Yes, Leslie.
Yes, I've been in this situation before at the start of projects, and this isn't having to do with websites, but it was dealing with the government when it came to meeting space and hotel rooms. And a lot of my boss was always like, well, fill out as many RFPs as possible and blah, 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 blah. But you really have to watch the commitment dates if you get multiple RFPs. So you just
Yeah, there you
don't
go.
overextend yourself for the sake of the business.
That's great. That's actually really great advice because yeah, you could be, going for multiple RFPs that all are set to start and end at about the same time. And lo and behold, you get, 3 of them all at once. And yeah, that could be a problem. Thank you for mentioning that. So yeah, one thing about RFPs though is the fact that it's pretty transparent and you can see what the requirements are. They're very, very specific. And, it really does make it a lot easier as opposed to, for example, when people contact me about a website project and they're talking to 2 other web designers. In that case, I don't know who those people are. I don't know what they're offering. They'll usually, the client will tell me it's like, oh, well, you're in the right ballpark, or, your bid was too high or your bid was too low, but I don't know what the other designers were offering. Were they offering something really bare bones basic? Were they offering something that had, way more features? I don't know. So yeah, at least with RFPs, it's all, comparing things apples to apples and, like that. So cool. So good. I'm glad that it sounds like you guys got some useful information out of that presentation. And I, am truly indebted to Dana for taking the time, even though it was last year. I'm still, it was a lot of great information, and thank goodness for Zoom, the fact that actually it was recorded. So that's pretty good. All right, well, I'm going to try doing some screen sharing. And like I said, if things start getting too bad on the video end, then I'll stop my video screen sharing and we can step through the modules together and discuss it that way. So let's see how we're doing. Okay, cool. So that was last week. So we covered a lot of useful information, the training resources, registering a business name, all of that stuff. And I hope that, so did you guys have a chance to read chapter 2 in Design as a Job? If you didn't, I hope you do, because it is a very useful book. And if you didn't watch this, I also suggest that you watch Fuck You, Pay Me. So F You, Pay Me.
I love his videos.
Once again, I know. This is actually one of his early ones. So yeah, it's well worth spending the time and learn a lot about how to work with clients from that guy. So, and of course, that's why we're reading his book, Design as a Job. All right, cool. So first of all, today, we're going to talk a little bit about business plans, how to come up with a business plan. Sometimes you're in a situation, starting a business where you're working, just getting things worked through, that they'll ask you, how, do you have a business plan? Or if you're going for funding, do you have a business plan? So, that's something that every business kind of needs to know. So whether or not you guys end up, starting a business, it's something that is good to check out. And one of the assignments that I restored to the module this morning, so it wasn't there a couple days ago, is to actually work up a business plan itself using this model. So let's take a quick look at it. So basically you will download a document which is similar to this. I forget if it's Word doc or Excel or something, but basically this kind of gives you the format. And you just kind of work through it and think about, oh, if you're doing a business, and once again, it can be any imaginary business, or it can be, you know, a business model you might have thought about if you have already taken my WordPress class, for example, and have come up with a website for a business. Or you can think about, you know, something in the future or something totally theoretical. So first of all, you think through the various segments and think about, you know, who are the customers, kind of like, where are you going to get the customers? And so this particular page steps you through each of the various segments and the requirements for each of it. So and I guess this was part of a workshop. So first of all, you think about who are, you know, your customers, what are the various divisions in them. So for example, if you had, you know, a dog grooming studio, as an example, what would be the different, you know, types of, you know, certainly one of your types of customers would be, you know, show dogs, or, you know, dogs who are get professional grooming all the time. Another segment might be owners who love to keep their poodles dyed to purple. So, you know, kind of like people who are just really into, you know, how their dogs, you know, look, or, you know, people like me who don't get their dogs groomed very often and really, you know, need some radical help. And so those would all be different types of customer segments. So whatever type of customer you're thinking about, think about kind of like, what would the variation be? So, you know, for example, another example would be a bakery. And so you'd have, you know, restaurants who buy, you know, bread and rolls and stuff on a regular basis. You'd have people who walk in and, you know, are there for, you know, cupcakes and cookies. You'd have people who, you know, so we have restaurants, we have walk-in customers. There might be commercial, you know, customers as far as kind of like, oh, we bake goods to supply to somebody to, you know, brand as their own. So those would be kind of like three types of customer segments. So value proposition. So what is, you know, what is the thing that you're really trying to sell here? So, you know, this is kind of like not just the fact that, oh, I'm doing affordable and effective websites that are built with WordPress, you know, as an example for me, and, you know, built with, you know, your design principles in mind based on a lifetime of being a graphic designer. So that's something that I offer, particularly as a value proposition that is different than somebody who is, you know, kind of like somebody from the development side who really understands servers and PHP and can provide, you know, custom apps. So those would be two different value propositions, both for the same kind of service. So let's talk about key activities. What are uniquely strategic things does the business to deliver its proposition? So key activities, I think in my case would be something like frequent client meetings, documentation and training. Perhaps key activities would be more custom design stuff. So thinking about what are the activities that really support the value proposition. So you see, it's kind of like we're working from this one, which, you know, from right to left. So key partnerships. So what can the company not do to focus on its key activities? Well, one of my key partners is I hired a bookkeeper. So that makes a big difference. So people, you know, that you can pay to do some of your services. Another key partner is I have an assistant who works on a, you know, time as needed basis. So that's been really helpful to have her. If you were to have a virtual assistant or somebody to manage all of the, you know, the business, day-to-day business details, that would be a key partner. My insurance provider could be considered a key partner because they provide the insurance that I need to stay in business. And you could even consider websites like Harvest or PayPal that also are key partners because they manage the money section of it. So cost structure, what are the business's major cost drivers? How are they linked to revenue? So the cost structure, you know, is going to be your overhead. It's going to be what are the things that you need to pay for on a regular basis to keep the business going. So, you know, in my case, I have all sorts of online subscriptions. I have my Zoom subscription. I've got my Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. I don't have, you know, luckily I don't have to have a subscription for using WordPress, but I do have to pay a subscription for, you know, my web hosting and any of the additional features of my web hosting. So those are the kind of things to consider in your cost structure. And of course, the overhead for, you know, having internet, you know, having a room to work in. So, you know, that's overhead. The cost of my laptop, the cost of my software, my cell phone. That's definitely part of the cost structure for my business. So, you know, just kind of think in terms of these. You know, once you start going with this stuff, it's pretty intuitive, but it's just kind of like, you know, thinking through all the various steps that would take to run a real, you know, online business. And so again, this could be either an online business or it could be a bricks and mortar business, whatever you want to think about. So let's see, what haven't we talked about? Oh, yeah, customer relationships. How do you interact with customers during, you know, so I used to meet with customers in person all the time. And that's something that I, you know, haven't been able to do for the last year and a half. I've been working with customers via Zoom. I've been working with, you know, via email, discussions, phone calls, you know, working up, being very clear as far as, you know, requirements. So if somebody tells me that they need to have something done, make sure that that is, you know, documented somehow. So one of the reasons why I prefer when clients will send me an email with specifics is sometimes people call you up And if you're in the car, you have this conversation, you don't have a chance to write it down, and you probably didn't record the phone call. So making sure that you follow up with any kind of verbal agreements is important. All right, customer relationships. Plus two, building customer relationships, lots of times that, that involves gratitude, and that involves letting people know that you really appreciate working with them, and, lots of positive feedback after I build a website. I always make sure and promote it myself, and, get it up on my portfolio. And also, I post links about it on Facebook and Twitter. So that lets people know, hey, there's a new website there, and, it supports me, but it also supports them. So it's really interesting to see how many of my clients do find, other contacts, other customers through the channels that I put up. So channels, that's the last thing that we haven't talked about. How are these propositions promoted, sold, and delivered? So as far as channels go, a lot of my business I get through word of mouth. So that is one channel. If you were to be doing advertising as far as, Facebook or Google ads, or even print ads, or, maybe you've joined your neighborhood association and have, gotten to meet people there and made connections there. That's a way of marketing. So basically channels mean marketing. So think about channels, kind of like, how do people find you? And, how do they receive what you have to offer? So in this case, if we're doing website stuff, it is, basically it's being delivered by the web. So you're building a website, it's up on the web, and that's a channel too. Okay, cost structure and revenue stream. So we already talked about cost structure and that being overhead for running your business. And revenue streams, that is, thinking about, how do you get paid? So in my case, there's the option for, certainly creating and selling the product, and making sure that, people have, they pay me. So they pay me for website. Ongoing support is something that is another revenue stream for me. And I do have a subscription available where, people can, pay me a certain fixed amount per month. And just to know that all of their website stuff is being kept up to date, it's being backed up, it's being updated, and all that. And so there are different levels that I have of that subscription. And one of the levels does include a certain amount of time for, up to 2 hours, I think, to, to actually do updates on the website. Okay. So yeah, basically that's kind of, this in a nutshell. And let's go back to the modules. And again, so the assignments. So this is the assignment that's going to be based on that. And I believe, okay, it does not need to be super complex. It can be just kind of like, download the business model canvas, think about a particular type of business, and, think about where, where's the money coming in? What would you actually be selling? What are the unique business propositions that this business would provide that would set them apart? because each business has a strength. Just as we all have strengths. And then it says, perform a SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. So let's see if I can find you guys an example of. See how fast the internet.
Is this just something we're gonna have to type out?
Yeah, well, here we go.
Well, I was
Maybe
asking-
I will put,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I would say I was wondering like if you wanted us to do an actual template or type it out, but I was gonna say if we have to type it out, I don't know if you could if you had examples we could all kind of look at on how people type theirs out, so we get a structure.
Yeah. Well, I think that would be a good idea. So why don't, it can be really simple. So let me see if these guys, and I apologize, this wouldn't be a bad way to do it. I mean, you could do it either in, this has various columns, which is kind of a pain to do in Microsoft Word, but you could basically just write strengths and, have bullet points. So you could do it as an outline, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. So let me minimize, because this one looks pretty good. Let's see if we can see this one. Hopefully there's not too many ads on it. Or you could even do it by hand and take a picture of it. Or if you have, access to a drawing program, you could do it that way too. But as you're, after doing the business plan matrix that we just looked at, then think, okay, now that I've done this, what are the strengths of this business? What could be the weaknesses? And what are the opportunities? So that, kind of like, oh, here are things that could really be an opportunity for this business to excel, and threats. So, what are some of the reasons where it might go bad? So anyways, yeah, just do that as an outline with a few points in Microsoft Word. That's fine. You don't need to have it in a box with, four squares in it. All right, so let's move along here. Come on. And this is a short video about the business canvas model. So this video is very amusing, and it's just kind of like how, if somebody had to design a stop sign based on client input, what would the stop sign end up looking like? And it just kind of, makes fun of all the various things that, people think are great solutions, but really in the long run are, just kind of crazy. All right, so yes, and the improv of UX design. Let's get up here. Oh, I think that I already opened. Here we go. It's already here. I already opened it. So have any of you guys ever done improv?
Possibly.
Many.
Not in
Many
a
years
structured
ago.
way.
Well, good. I know I love watching improv, and my daughter took it in an improv class, and I've never really, gotten up on stage or done it itself, but it is, so fun. And the actors, basically participating in improv is all about just kind of starting off with a concept and running with it, kind of like what we're doing today. So the whole point, basic premise of improv is yes and. So basically somebody gives you a concept, and it's up to you to take that concept and you accept whatever is given at face value without changing it, negating it, or disagreeing with it. So you can't say, no. So if somebody says, okay, I'm camping at Glacier National Park and a bear walks into the campground, go. And then they give it to you, and you have to figure out what would your reaction be and kind of like build on that. So
Kind of like that TV show, Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes, exactly. And you can tell a lot of the players at like Saturday Night Live had a background in improv. Actually, Stephen Colbert started off doing improv. He never did stand-up comedy. He did improv until he became a writer. And then he started, appearing on Jon Stewart and stuff. But you can tell sometimes that he's, has those kind of reactions. It's like people throw him, ideas from the audience and stuff, and he'll just, start,
riff on
improvising. And yeah, he'll riff on it. So, yeah, so that's, and that's also kind of like when, you're working with clients and somebody comes up with an idea, and yes, they're coming to you as a professional. So it's up to you to let them know that, that's really kind of a dumb idea. But there's also the possibility of saying, okay, let's start with this premise, and then you add your value to it. So the move to action. So you learn to adapt. So kind of like, okay, we can flex some of your requirements and, take it from there. Listening to the other person is hugely important, both in improv and, working with people, being friends. I think that one of the skills that we really seem to have lost in our society with COVID, because we've all been in our own homes, doing our own thing, not having to interact, and, the world just gets weirder. It's been really hard to listen to other people when you do get together. And, you see this a lot in both, customer service, both sides of customer service, both from the customer standpoint and, you think of servers in the restaurants and stuff. So yeah, it's really hard to listen to one another. So and it is critical in improv. If you're, working with somebody else on stage, you need to listen to what they're talking about. So collaboration, working together to come up with something that is really meaningful. And, kind of like, what can you add to what the other person is doing? How can you build something better together that's better than what either one of you can do individually? And so this is, collaboration and creation is something that, happens with clients all the time. So the challenge is, once again, looking for opportunities to say yes and support their goals, as opposed to trying to, just totally stomp on any good idea. Because sometimes clients come up with an idea that is really far-fetched, and you think, oh, that is so stupid. But if you can support it and help direct them into something, this is where you're adding the value. This is where your skills and your professional background is going to add the value to them. All right, so I just love this because it's talking all about, how improv can, make you a better user experience designer. And even if, you don't go into, let me close some of these windows here. Even if you never end up going into user experience directly, just understanding user experience and the process of it, it's all about getting feedback from the customers and finding out what works for them. And, bottom line, that's what our goal is. All right, so this page is just talking about creative problem solving. So asking problems as questions, that's one. That's really good. So it's like, oh, my bandwidth sucks today. How do I cope with this? So it's kind of like the question is, how do I cope with my bandwidth today? What are the strategies I can use that are going to get us through this Zoom meeting and make sure everything stays connected? So that was my problem as a question for today. So divergent and convergent thinking must be balanced. That is a pretty subtle concept, but learning how to identify and balance divergent and convergent thinking. So that's a term I'm not really that familiar with, but I guess that it means that thinking that is kind of like against the direction that you want to take, and the convergent thinking is, the direction that you really, feel should be, going in. So defer or suspend judgment, that's another thing. So lots of times in creative problem solving, you come up with these unusual solutions just based on the fact that you held back judgment. It's kind of like, oh, this is always, a car should always have the steering wheel on the left-hand side. That's the way it should be. I just took a ride with my son this morning in his new van he imported from Japan that has right-hand side drive. And I was in the passenger seat on the left-hand side, and it was very weird. But it also, it works. And it's just, it's another way of doing it. And so, deferring or suspending judgment is, kind of like, oh, what are these solutions and how can they work? And so once again, focusing on yes and rather than no but. So this is basically the creative problem solving template. So you clarify, what is the problem? Use those problems to ask questions. You come up with ideas. You develop solutions, and then you implement it. So that is creative problem solving in a nutshell. And this page here has a number of kind of creative solutions that are examples of creative thinking, creative problem solving. I love this label for the avocados, that it totally gives you an idea of, oh, this avocado is indeed right. So that's cool. Or here's a highlighter that has a clear section so you can look through it to see the type that you want to highlight rather than just kind of, This one is a great solution for, a picnic table that includes the entire family. So you can have, the little kids sitting down here if you want. You can have, the grown-ups. Here's room for the baby. And, it's just unusual. So iced coffee cubes that works. It takes a little while before, it melts and stuff, but that's fine. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? An ATM that lets you pick your cash denomination. So instead of just getting all 20s, you could actually get 20s and 2 5s and 5 1s. What would it take to actually provide that level of opportunity for the ATMs? So this one tells you exactly how cold your beverage is. So that's interesting, I guess. So once you pick it out of the left-hand side over here, then, and you've made your selection, then it tells you what the temperature is. Of course, I don't have much I guess I have some idea of what a cold drink is, because I know that, freezing is 32 and, probably a lot of the beverages in my refrigerator would be like 40 or 50 degrees or something. So this is the greatest way to get pens returned. So this pen was stolen from, an oil change company in return for a $5 oil change. So this not only is, solving the problem of getting stolen pens returned, it's actually marketing, because they're kind of encouraging people to steal their pens and distribute them in order to get the $5 off. All right, a pet relief station at the airport. Oh, that's totally creative and definitely something that's needed. And it looks like there's even a little shower stall if your dog needs a quick bath. So that's a level of customer service I haven't seen very often. So in this case, what is it? Installing spacers between bathroom stalls so there's no awkward cracks.
They do that in Japan, actually. When I went over there, like their privacy is totally out there. Like you can't see anything in any bathroom stalls.
Well, that's cool.
And then like I went to a hotel and I went to go use their bathroom. So as soon as you walk in, the toilet lid actually raises up automatically. The toilet seats are automatically warm. And it was the weirdest thing. So when I went to go sit on the toilet, it started playing music in the bathroom. And I was like, what the hell is this? So I stood up and the music turned off, right? And I'm like, okay. So I sit back down and the music starts playing again. And I was like, it's actually not that bad.
Did it have the electric toilet seat cover that rotates through as well?
No, but it had a bidet, and that was the first time I'd ever used one, and it was really hot, and I jumped up, and I was just like, this is really unnecessarily hot, and I didn't know how to use it. And then I tried to clean myself, and the toilet paper was wet, and I was like, this is stupid.
Oh, no.
You didn't wait for the dryer.
I've never used one before. I'm like, okay, and like everything's written in Japanese. Like I didn't know how to use a bidet.
Yeah, just sit quietly and let it do its work.
Yes, you're there in, that is totally a huge shift there. So this one is a microwave that has a pull-out drawer. That's actually kind of handy. Just, a little bit different. And so they have, here are brownies. Now this is really low tech. This is not something that's, a Japanese bathroom level of creative problem solving. But these, brownies, so people like the different parts of a brownie. So, people who want the corner to have the 2 crusty edges, or just the regular edge, or the center. And this only took a little hand-drawn sign and some, markers and tape. But, people will remember that kind of thing. So figuring out where can you add, delight and fun. So If you want people to leave you alone, you choose the basket from this side. If you want customer service, salespeople to come up and offer you help, then you choose this basket. And I just love it.
Asian
think that's
countries are
great.
always like years ahead of us with their helpful creativity.
Yeah. Well, and it shows. Yeah. So if you've ever taken off makeup, having a black makeup towel makes a lot of sense. Let's just put it that way. All right, so a bread clip doubles as a button reader.
These are
So
life hacks.
Yeah, they really, some of them are. This is truly a life hack. A door sign that changes from open to nope in just one quick switch. So you just move the letter from one end to the other. That's clever. That's cool. A handicap button that you can click with your feet. So if your hands are full or something, you can also use it. So I don't know if you guys have heard about the tool libraries that I know one just opened up in my part of Portland recently. But, having the opportunity to go and share tools. So, not everybody needs a planer or a router all the time, but to be able to go and check one out when you need one instead of paying, over $100, that's pretty awesome. But these baking pans, it's also very interesting. So they have all these different shapes that you could use. So this is just kind of like an example of some of the fun ideas that actually add, it's creative, it adds customer satisfaction, it adds, it makes your job more fun too. And there are a lot of, different ways to incorporate that. So this was that one. So we're not going to have time to watch this, but I definitely suggest that you guys take a little bit of time to listen to Aaron Draplin. He is a local design wizard. He focuses mostly on logos. Let me see if I can pull up his website really quickly. And I've heard him talk a couple of times at Web Visions and other conferences and stuff. And he has the fastest presentation style I've ever seen. And it just kind of like throws all this information up at you, and it's very entertaining, very engaging and stuff. But he does all of these different logos, and he started out doing what I think snowboard work, doing a lot of snowboard designs, but he's always been interested by kind of like traditional design, industrial design, all that stuff. Let's see if we can look at a little bit more of his work. He also designed a stamp. It's a star flag stamp, and I don't know if I'll have any of it here. But you can see that his logos are really basic and really, just interesting approaches. Always uses, interesting lettering. Peak Oil Company, it's an oil drop. Sometimes, the Sasquatch Festival, has a little Sasquatch. And there, I really want to show you guys his stamp though. Unfortunately, I didn't buy his stamp when it was available on sheets, and now you can only get it 1,000 rolls of 1,000 at a time. So that is more than. What do you do for Bernie Sanders? So these are examples of his posters that he did for Bernie. So as you can tell, the guy is super creative. He also is really giving in that he'll get these gigs with these really big companies and stuff, and then he'll do things that are just for fun to support, this local startup hot dog company that he met. The guy he met is just getting started. So he'll, do logos for free, but he'll also do really big projects. So definitely spend a little bit of time. Once again, I lost the video, this one. Making it in the little leagues. Very engaging. And this one is 17 minutes. So with that, our guest speaker is going to be showing up in a little over 6 minutes. So why don't we take our break now? And I'll stop sharing. So why don't we take our break now and come back at 2 o'clock, and then we will have Robert Lacosse here, and he's going to be talking not so much about building an outside business, although he has experience in that. He's going to be talking about working for others. And at least I think so. You never know with Rob. So he's going to be talking about how to make your job more fun and carve out time and space and satisfaction for you, even while you're working for your corporate overlords. So with that, we'll stop video and we'll be back at 2 o'clock. So far, the internet held. Yay. Gonna go get some more water. I'll be right back. All right, let's get started again. Rob just sent me a text that he's running a little late, so we will go ahead and just continue to improvise for a little bit. Does anybody have any questions about the stuff we were talking about? I love that input that you guys gave me about your experiences in Japan and other countries. I know we've been in situations too, probably where, like, you know, you're out in the boonies of Eastern Oregon or something, and technology isn't what you expect. And so, you know, but sometimes there's also the extra added bonus of, you know, people might be friendlier or they might not be friendly. So, you know, it all depends. You could have access to much fresher fruits and vegetables because you're right there where people grow them. You know, if you're out in Hermiston in watermelon season, you can get the best watermelons. So there's always an advantage that you can usually find one way or another. Right, so I'm just going to share this. This is one of the videos that I would like you guys to definitely watch. Dan Whedon is one of the founders of Whedon and Kennedy. And if you know anything about advertising in the Portland area, they are advertising geniuses. They've done some of the most memorable ad campaigns, you know, and they've also done some flops. But for example, the Old Spice campaign, you know, had all these wacky scenarios and, you know, the really handsome black guy that, you know, in different costumes and stuff. Or
Good old Terry Crews.
What?
I said good old Terry Crews.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Was that his name?
Yeah, he's funny. I like him.
Yes, he's very good. And so, you know, they've had a huge influence on advertising in general, but pretty much, you know, it all started in Portland, and now they're an international firm. They've got agencies all over the world. But I got to hear him speak one year at the Creative Conference, and it was quite memorable because he talked about how failure helped build his business. And that's one of the topics that actually we're going to be talking about the last week of the term. So, did I hear somebody come on? Yes, sharing. Let's see. No. I heard a little ding. I thought it might be Robert. Okay. So I wish that I could show you guys these videos right now because they, you know, and adds a lot of fun to this particular class session, but I don't even want to dare try it because I think that it would totally break the internet at my house. So, and I want you guys to continue to be able to at least hear me. So let's go back to the module here. So with that, what is the next thing? Talk a little bit about the assignment. Oh, this was the one that we just looked at, creative problem solving for problems you didn't even know existed. And so your writing assignment for this week will be researching creative problem solving. So that will be fun. Provide a link to an article, do the same thing with the, 3 paragraphs or, 300 to 750 words. And then remember to have a single paragraph and a sentence, and make sure to actually include the link for, whatever page you're looking at somewhere in the homework. I know that there were a few of you that actually provided it in the comments, so that was good. But if you can actually provide it in the text, it just makes things a little bit easier. So that will be, I think, fairly easy one. And then your next assignment will be to talk about the talk by Robert. And then after that is the competitive strategy plan. Do you think I should give you guys 2 weeks on this one? Since you already have the other 2 assignments. Do you think that might not?
I mean, I don't know. Is it like pretty, it seemed pretty simple when you showed us the little 4 square thing.
Yeah, well, I think that it, it's kind of like thinking things through. So let's say, no, I'm going to give you 2 weeks. I'm going to give you 2 weeks because you'll always have the 2 other assignments. And this is kind of like in addition to. So with that, I wish I could play you guys those videos. That's what I really want to do. And let me check my text to see if you've gotten an update from Rob yet. No, okay. So as you can tell by a lot of the things that we just discussed today, this does feed into both, visual design and, product design, but also user experience. So thinking of the user experience that is going to be unique and satisfying and to provide everything that the client needs is, that's where a lot of the, the design goes into. You're thinking about the process. You're thinking about how people use something. And as someone who has actually participated in user testing, it is always not what you expect. So when I was at TriMet, the first time I ever participated in a usability test, we basically set up this brand new trip planner. And this was like back in 2000. So it was this form and it was developed by the programmers and they thought that, oh, we thought of everything. And so we did a usability test, which was kind of a new idea, and went into, had the users in another room one at a time. And there was, the person doing the testing. So, the UX professional. And we were sitting in a room with, behind the mirrored windows, and we could watch them and see what they were doing. And they were given various problems that seemed like such, no-brainers to us. It's like, oh, okay, sure, you enter in this and you enter in that, and hit the button and there you go. But it had been developed by programmers without any design input. And so we're watching people, try and use this trip planner, and they're just getting lost in ways that, just didn't expect people to be having so much trouble. Like, why are they having so much problem? And it ended up being the fact that, there was too much detail. And the programmers thought, it's like, oh, we'll make sure people do it right. I will have like a sentence and a half. No, that was like 3 sentences of information, how to enter this information. And like so much, it's like you had to do it exactly. And you had, oh, there's Robert. So needless to say, we're watching people not be able to use a trip planner, not being able to find the button, not being able to do this. So it's all about, making sure that it works for people. With that, here's our user experience professional, Robert Lacosse. And welcome to the class. I'm so glad you could make it.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. All right, good job. Just so you know, I am up here at the cabin and I have really low bandwidth today. So I have just made you co-host so that if for any reason my bandwidth should drop off, hopefully you'll be able to take over.
No problem, and sounds good. And yeah, I mean, if you need to cut your video feed, generally audio is a little bit better when we cut audio feed. The things we deal with,
Let's do that.
like bandwidth, the commodity.
Yes, there we go. There we go. All right. Well, thank you for joining the class. And we've been talking about, creative problem solving and fun, and, how that applies to building a business. But, I told them that you'd probably talk about how working for a business and ways that you can incorporate fun about that.
Yeah, and we can talk about both, certainly, because there's crossover.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Fun, right? What do we mean by fun? So this is something to give you a little bit of background in the class. Let's see, I see Leslie is in this class. Hey, so I know, I'm presuming a few people and Derry's in, or did I just see Derry? Yep, Derry's in this class too. Oh, and Jane. Oh, I know a bunch of people in this class. All right. So let's talk about fun. So as some of you may know, I've designed a few games. So for me, fun is really weird because I start to understand fun at a mathematical or experiential level. Then it becomes ambiguated to me. So I'm like, I understand how to create it, but then observing it becomes this really weird experience where I'm like, in my mind, I know mathematically you're having fun, but the definition starts to get slippery for me personally. And I start to wonder, like, am I actually having fun, or am I just making a series of decisions that I think I'm actually owning, but are really pre-prescribed for me? So let's talk about what it means chemically, right? Fun is basically the feeling that's attributed to usually some level of oxytocin, or the love drug. And when I say drug, I mean neurochemical. Or serotonin and dopamine, which rise in tandem with each other. So generally, you'll predominantly feel the one that starts rising faster, but then the other one will be a trailer, because that's kind of how they work. So of course, when we experience a high level of serotonin, we experience satisfaction. We experience some level of pleasure. You want serotonin. And or dopamine. Dopamine also has it's very tangential, and it's very in the same ballpark as serotonin. But if you were to really try and splice hairs, dopamine might be attributed with more of a feeling of body happiness rather than mental stimulation type happiness. So now, in terms of business, what does this mean? right? What does it mean to have a bunch of serotonin if you're doing business things, right? It basically means that you're able to innovate. So essentially, you can consider this as two separate mindsets. One mindset is the innovation mindset that goes with that pleasant chemistry, that chemistry of serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, essentially low stress chemistry. And you need a near stress-free situation in order to take advantage of the full scope of that chemistry. This is where you're able to do things like synthesize thoughts. I've got this jar of peanut butter and I've got this bar of chocolate. What would happen if I put them together? Somebody had to think of that initially, or maybe it was an accident. But anyway, you're able to put things together that other people might benefit from the combination of. And you do this under low stress environment. Then there's the other state. The other state is essentially where your fight or flight reaction kicks in. And that is attributed to epinephrine. Otherwise, I believe that epinephrine is synonymous with adrenaline. And that's where, if you wonder, why, even when you know that something is due, and then you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and then at some point, there's a little ping, and something goes off in your brain, and you're like, I need to get it done. But you also have this ability, perhaps, to focus. That's where the epinephrine kicked in. That's where you got the little jolt. And what happens? You get focus. You get the ability to execute. So you may not be executing in an innovative way, but you're able to just, as they say, turn the crank, get the work done, put a pen to paper and make something come out. Now, ideally, if you want to write really good papers for school, you wait until your casual state, your low stress state, way before the deadline, and you outline the paper. You outline it. You say, you know what, I'm going to talk about, this subject, and, maybe I'll talk about this, and this for supporting paragraphs. And hey, and that's where you get the, hey, oh, maybe I could even weave in this, and this topic. And you just leave it as a rough outline. You leave it, it's just, you want to get it architected when you're low stress. So when you get a little stress booster, little epinephrine kicking the pants to get going, then you go to your perfect outline that you made under a low stress condition. And you go, oh, I can execute this. Right. So if you're looking to create a business, and of course, businesses benefit from having a competitive edge, and a competitive edge as defined by doing something better or something that hasn't been done before, that the competitors have either done poorly or not done at all, and people want. You want to explore that territory under low stress environment. So don't wait until your business opens its doors. Don't wait until you're already on the hook for quarterly tax filings. Architect your business way in advance, because you want that ramp time. You want the low stress period to make innovative decisions and plot interesting roadmaps, so that when push comes to shove, you might have a plan that you created a while ago under different conditions, where you were thinking in a different way, and then you might be able to implement when the time comes. Any questions about that so far? I know I just show up to class and I'm like, bam, 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 bam.
That's how you have to be sometimes.
All right. Yeah.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it pretty much is. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Oh, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this little thing. So while I don't necessarily recommend the abuse of common chemistry, I should probably mention that caffeine is not a performance enhancer. It is not. It doesn't help with cognition. It just literally makes you, in whatever performative state you are in, it makes you a little bit more awake. That's it. But it doesn't actually increase the performance of your current state. So keep that in mind. If you pull an all-nighter and you're expecting, you know, a cup of coffee to help things, it may not help things as much as you think. Sure, it may help you from not falling asleep at the wheel, which is great. And I suppose you could call that a performance enhancer of sorts. But unfortunately, if I was to point to a common actual performance enhancer, and again, this is not where I recommend it, but it's nicotine. Nicotine actually increases performance, granted for a very small window, but it actually does. So again, not a recommendation. Okay, let's talk about some other, any questions that I should like riff off? For Feline, you know approximately what I've talked about in the past, and I feel like I could talk about like what recommended titles. I could talk about the meeting in room 404.
Your soul and your life is worth more than a few seconds of boost.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, not a recommendation.
I like the 404 idea.
Okay, let's talk about the meeting in room 404.
Yes.
So, anybody heard of this nifty thing called work-life balance?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Remotely.
you don't have it though.
Oh, you don't have it.
Not
Okay.
exactly.
Let's talk about that. So, work-life balance, which is yeah, as a term that's highly questionable, along in the same vein as like, oh, this is a meritocracy, or we're family at this business. No, you're not. No, you're not. Unless you literally are family and it's a family business. Then in that rare instance, then yes. But so work-life balance is incredibly easy to lose, per Jason's comment. And it's incredibly hard to get back. So let's just remember that. That's a pretty important thing, rolling into a new position or new business and adventure, new job role, whatever it is. Work-life balance, easy to lose, hard to get back. And how do you lose it? How do you lose it? It's because you just got a new job and you wanna prove out. You wanna be like, yes, I'm a good worker. Please keep me on payroll. Which, of course, yes, you do want to be kept on payroll. But where you start to slip and drink your own Kool-Aid, or drink the Kool-Aid that's being served at every business, is where you start to put in those extra hours. You want to get something in by some deadline, which is a laudable aspiration. But should you be taking what is ostensibly your personal time to go over your 40 hours for the week? Probably not, because that's how you lose the balance. By instead of communicating to the person with whatever deadline, and maybe it's an arbitrary deadline. Often deadlines are arbitrary. They are. This is where condition yourself to be brutally honest, and also hold back when you're like, oh yeah, I can get that done by tomorrow. Well, a lot of stuff may happen. You may need to update your computer. You may need to be in more than a half day worth of meetings. You may need to respond to some ungodly amount of email. A lot of stuff can happen. So when you feel the impulse to say, I can get it to you by a day, you feel free to give yourself 20% more time, 50% more time, 300% more time. You feel free to do that. This fits into an overarching category of under promise, over deliver, the opposite of what that Elon Musk guy does routinely. Under promise. So if you think that you can get it done by tomorrow, say the day after. And then if you get it in tomorrow, you'll look amazing. And a lot of this is providing a frame of reference for the people you're speaking to. Providing a frame of reference. So if somebody gives you a deadline, you say, you know what, I need to look at this task carefully, and then say, I think that your deadline may need to be adjusted to account for the number of hours that I have on this, or hey, I don't think I have the bandwidth to deliver it to you by that deadline. Who else can we get in to help me meet that deadline? And especially if you're talking to a managerial position or leadership position. This is where, yeah, it's an absolutely acceptable request. You shouldn't be expected to bust your ass in some unrealistic way. And it does take a little bit of chutzpah to actually tell someone to their face that actually this deadline may not be realistic. We may need more resources on this. Oh, we don't have more resources? Well, are we all familiar with the Iron Triangle? It's a business web practices course. Feline, have you grilled them on the Iron Triangle?
We have not discussed the Iron Triangle.
This would be that time.
Yes, this is it. You want to use the whiteboard? There you go.
Got 3 points. Anybody want to tell me the points? Leslie.
No.
I'm gonna gather that one of them is work life versus home life.
Close. You're getting there. Let's see. Who else? Let's see.
Cost, time, and quality.
There we go. Very well done, Melanie. Oh, Melanie is in this class too. Look at that. Cost, time, and quality. So, and Melanie, how many do you get to pick of those?
Only 2.
Only 2. Only 2. Ever. Only 2. You can never pick all 3. So, and this is, if you can embrace this and realize that this is ubiquitous. This is not 1 or 2 projects. This is not 1 or 2 businesses. This governs the entirety of most ecosystems. So, and as in business ecosystems and other ecosystems for that matter. So, and this is why it's okay to tell whoever or give an honest opinion about deadlines or project requirements not aligning to a realistic schedule, because there is always a way to make things go faster or make things be cheaper or raise the quality of things. But you only ever get to pick 2 of these. You can do something fast and you can have it be high quality, but it's not going to be cheap. You can do something cheaply and you can do something fast, but it's not going to be high quality, so on and so forth. So this is why just understanding that and remembering that, that's how you can pitch, hey, oh, you want it by this time? Great, we're going to need another resource. Increase the cost. Oh, you want it by this time? Well, do you need it at this level? Or are you willing to accept the level below? Because based on your timeline, we either step up the resources or we step down the expectations, right? This is a common language. Everybody speaks this language, or at least everybody who's managing a business should speak this language. All right. Yeah, exactly. Do you want it right or do you want it now? Very well said, Joe. All right. So now, meeting in room 404. Now, what happens when, like Jason, you have accidentally let the work-life balance go somewhere and somewhere away from you, right? Well, there's this thing, the meeting in room 404. It's great. It occurs at every business. And it's a really, really fun meeting. So on a computer, what does error 404 mean?
Something not found.
Exactly. So this is how you get back a little bit of work-life balance. If you want to buffer in your schedule, and if people are snooping on your schedule or something like that, now maybe you don't call it room 404. Maybe you call it something else, a real room somewhere. Or maybe you work at a very large company and you're not the only person that would like to go to the meeting in room 404. So the meeting in room 404 doesn't exist. It's a place where you can buffer your schedule. Now, I don't know what you would use that time for. That's at your discretion. But this is an invitation to, when you feel work-life balance slipping away, put dummy meetings into your schedule. And that way you regain your buffer. And if your schedule looks overly busy, that's great. That's great. So then you are manifesting your own conversation pattern or discussion content. So you're saying, you know what, I would love to take on this extra workload, but my schedule is pretty packed and I don't think I can. No. And again, this is part of the power of saying no, understanding what your bandwidth is, understanding what the iron triangle is, understanding that all you have to do are say the right combination of words, and usually you can manifest pretty much whatever. So, and sorry, I use the word manifest not to be like magical and woo, but yeah, you're basically like bringing a thought in your head through a bunch of words into being that then has an actual state change effect on your life. So, and you know what is magic but science that works? Or wait, what is science but magic that works? There we go. So the meeting can be on Monday morning. The meeting can be at the end of day on Friday. And maybe the meeting is at the beach. Maybe the meeting is in your bed sleeping in. And of course, we live in the pandemic era. So, I mean, working remotely, I work entirely remotely. So this is incredibly easy for me to do. And I would assume that as businesses really, I mean, I love the articles about CEOs that are just really looking forward to RTO, return to the office. And it's like, oh, sweet baby child. I don't think that's going to be happening in any semblance of what you were used to.
That world is gone.
Yeah, burned to the ground. Delightful. So this is just something for you to carry with you, hold in your back pocket. If you need to engage it, you do so. You do so. You remember that Robert told you it was okay. Because let's remember, what's the point of a job? Can anybody tell me the point of a job? Working for somebody else?
Provide an income so that I can live and support my family.
Yes.
Getting paid so that we don't die and starve on the streets.
There you go. The point of a job is to part the employer with as much capital as you can for as little of your time as possible. That is the point. What you do with that, what you do with the remainder of your time is at your discretion. With what you do with your amount of revenue that you've parted them with, that's your discretion as well. But that's the point, to get as much from them for as little from you as possible. And I'll let you in a little secret. What do you think they're doing?
The exact opposite.
Exactly. Let's remember that every time somebody says, oh, we're fucking family at this company. No, you're not. Oh, we work hard and play hard. Yeah, that's a nice idea. Sure, why not? Yeah, you'd go play whatever game you want, and I'll just do my job, thanks. Or another good one. Contract to hire. Is there any guarantee? Oh, there's no guarantee? Have we all heard the term contract to hire?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know what I've never seen? That put in writing. So if somebody offers you, oh, of course, this company, you know, after 12 months, they've onboarded most of the people that I've sent to them. So we'll say the recruiter. There is no guarantee unless there is a written guarantee. And I have never encountered a company that is willing to put forward a written guarantee. So remember that when folks are trying to shine you on, gloss you over, make you buy into a reality that they have in their brain and they are now articulating into the shared reality through their verbiage, and then you bring them back to the real reality, which is, where is the writing on a piece of paper that is signed? That's the real reality, not what they're trying to sell you on. In fact, in my class, I actually have an employment, a talent employment agreement that we read over as a class together from Aquint staffing agency. And section 1 says any reference to any length of any contract is an estimate only and non-binding. And then section 12 says, oh, by the way, this is right to work, so you can leave for any reason or no reason at any time. And also the employer can dismiss you for any reason or no reason at any time. And what we forget often is that section 12, that at will, that cuts both ways. You should never feel bad about leaving a job. You should never feel bad about doing something in your best interests, because whatever business you are working at is going to do absolutely everything in their best interest. And just because they say the word family does not mean it's a family. Let's see. Any other questions? Questions, feelings, comments? Oh, do you guys know that HR is not your friend?
Yeah, now I do.
HR is, who?
Not universally true. Like, most of what you've said is not universally true, but is vastly the majority of the time.
Thank you. I'll settle for that. That's good. Vast majority. All right. So if we're going to talk about HR, whose interests do they serve?
The companies.
There we go. Don't forget that. You got a problem? You might think twice about going to HR. Like case in point, and this is going to get dark, and I'm going to give a trigger warning right now. Trigger warning. If you need to mute me, go ahead. We're going to talk about what happens if you're sexually assaulted at work. Who do you go to first?
Usually your boss. Some do, not all of them, but some do.
You file a police report first. Why? Because your boss is going to go to HR. HR is going to go and collaborate with legal immediately. The company is going to immediately start limiting their own liability. And in doing that, they will be serving their own interests first and foremost, and your interests will be a close or far second. Police report first, then, and ideally, attorney, police report, then contact your manager in HR. That would be the ideal order of operations. So now you know, and I hope that is never a situation that anyone has to encounter, but it's better to know ahead of time than know a little bit too late about what side who is on. So anyway, segueing, any other questions, anything I can fill in? We've been talking about work-life balance, the concept of fun, neurochemistry.
So by your logic on the last topic, if our company is tries to exploit and break people for their benefit, does that mean we should start trying to exploit and break people for our benefit?
Wait, say it again. I just want to make sure I'm mapping.
So if a company tries to exploit and break people for their own benefit, does that mean we should start trying to exploit and break people for our own benefit?
Well, this is where we get into questions of how much money do we want to make and how quickly? Because again,
And at what cost?
yeah, and at what cost? Because if we want to make a lot of money, I want to do it quickly, we may not be able to use the most quality means to do so. That's just following the iron triangle. But if we can accept perhaps a slightly slower path, and slower is not necessarily worse, because as we see here, if maybe we want to do things right, increase the quality of the company we create, we might opt to do so for the same price point and sacrifice a little bit of our speed in doing so. So yeah, and granted, this is an ethical quandary for everyone to explore on their own. I mean, American business really does not paint a happy picture in most cases, especially in the larger businesses. So, but great question.
I see. I'm personally not someone who thinks it's worth it to resort to malice to get anything ever, but
Yeah,
well, thank you for answering.
and absolutely. We should also remember, if we plot on a timeline. I mean, are we all familiar with the French Revolution? Are we all familiar with? I always forget the engagement. But what happened to the Romanovs?
They didn't make it.
They didn't make it. Not even the little itty bitty children. Nope. At a certain point, and it's theorized that the 10th meal is the point. And what do we mean by the 10th meal? Okay, at a certain point, basically civilizations reach, or a society reaches a breaking point. And it's theorized that the 10th meal, when folks do not know where the 10th meal is coming from, that is theorized as the breaking point. And usually what happens at the breaking point is people get really desperate, and desperate people do nasty things. Because let's face it, nobody likes being hungry. Nobody likes being hungry. Nobody likes being uncertain. We could track this back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People very much need food, shelter, safety. And when you take away those things, that is adding to the stress load. That's adding to not the innovation mindset where you can think about, hey, I've got a new idea for a business to just, make it through the next couple of years of uncertainty. It's, well, I don't know where my 10th meal is coming from, and I got a club, and I know where to go to find some rich folks, and yeah, let's see what happens. Because they're probably walking around with an exploitable credit card, or some extra pocket cash, or a pearl necklace, or something like that.
Or a sandwich.
Yeah, or a sandwich. Yes. People have been murdered for very weird things. So yeah, per the timeline of exploitation, it can only go so far. It can only go so far. And generally what happens after it's past the X point is nothing good for the folks who consider themselves the master of their domain or society. So
Definitely, but circling back around on this, it's kind of like, some of the strategies, like, having work-life balance and making sure that you have at least 2 points on the triangle and not expecting 3. Those are all really foundational concepts. And, there's nothing mercenary in making sure you, block out time on your calendar.
Yeah.
Nothing mercenary about, saying, oh, okay, I'm going to add extra time onto the deadline that I give, client, expected deadline. So I have enough time to do it. So those are all really good strategies.
yeah.
We don't need to hit anybody over the head with a club.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, other strategies. I'm like, Oh yeah, I've got something. Oh yeah.
uh-oh. How to write an email. Yes.
How to Write an Email by Justin Kerr. So I believe that the Clark College Library is going to get at least 2 copies of this in the near term. They asked me for some book ideas, and I think, I've connected them with the author, so that should work out pretty well. That book. So again, it's very thin. It's tiny. It's tiny. And what we're talking about, how many pages are we talking about? We're talking about less than 100 pages.
As your email should be tiny.
What?
As your email should be.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
That's the whole point. Okay.
Right. How to Write an Email. All right, that book. I'll put it in the chat. Here, let me just grab it.
Okay, cool.
How to Write an Email.
Are there any other questions, you guys? We've got 5 minutes left.
Oh yeah.
Comments, thoughts?
Real quick aside, what is it that you do for companies? User experience. I mean, that's a really vast term. Just on a general sense, what is it you do? I mean, you're making a living doing this. I'm curious how that works.
Oh, yeah. And you can take UX design, CTEC 117, if you so choose. I teach that class. All right. So, what do I do? So I work for Milwaukee Tool right now. In the past, I've worked for Intel, OMSI, Zimmer Biomet, Connective DX, a bunch of other companies or things. So user experience is essentially the field of study of people doing things. And this is usually, in a business sense, this is studying someone doing a task that is a revenue generator in some way. So this might be a salesperson going on to sales calls or going to sales visits. And of course, you would be designing perhaps sales software, or maybe you would be designing the sales kit that they bring with them, or maybe even the sales script or strategy. In other cases, this might mean watching, say, or observing a caterpillar operator, a backhoe, dig a ditch, right? Because maybe you're designing the dashboard of the backhoe, and you want to see if there are any jerky hand movements, or if certain orders of operation are present that are not mirrored in the dashboard. So right now I'm working on smart tools. There, I got one. This is a giant one. So this is a high impact smart torque wrench. And what I'm doing is I am going out into the field, to mechanical contractors, and I am asking them about these things. These things are Victaulic couplings, and they are a type of mechanical grooved coupling. Basically, if you put in a sprinkler system, you're going to be using on the low end like 100 of these things at about average $50 a pop. On the high end, if you're doing something like a boatyard in Florida, you're going to be using 10,000 of these at $50 a pop, right? So what I do is in the field, I go and I ask basically crib managers who manage the place where all the tools live at night, and do the tool ordering and tool maintenance and ship out tool packages to job sites. I also go to those job sites and I ask questions and observe installers of those couplings using the tools. I might bring a prototype with me and observe or have prompts for users to actually use that prototype. And then I can report on, are we going the right direction to yield a viable solution? How good is a preliminary solution that we are analyzing? Where could we make improvements, do it faster, cheaper, better? And ultimately, how might we consider a strategic approach? What key pieces might we observe in the field that might influence our strategic thinking? As you said, it's vast. It's vast.
And I love the fact that, it's like we think in terms of user experience as being all, web-based and talking about websites and apps and stuff, but you're doing user experience with actual tools.
Yeah, actual tools, and the tools connect to an app and connect to the web. But
okay, so it does have the web aspect to it.
There is a web aspect.
Yeah.
Here, if you want the $10 concept, remember this, because you'll probably encounter the term journey map, right? A journey map, something that says somebody starts here and they do this, this, and this, and they end here. And maybe that end loops back to the beginning in a way, right? Consider this. People love when I bring the concept of an online to offline journey map to the table. And usually I create these things. And these are especially useful because if you do two journey maps, one online, one offline, and you map them both in parallel, you get a much more accurate picture where someone might drop into the digital experience from the physical experience, or drop out of the digital experience into the physical experience. And essentially seeing where the drop in, drop out occurs helps you build a much more robust product that can account for way more situations.
Cool.
And if you want a case in point, online shopping carts, right? Basically, cart abandonment is huge. Cart abandonment is like most of online shopping carts. So if you can move the needle on that, and even get like 1% more to complete their purchase, that represents potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. So consider this. An online shopping cart that in some cases, as you've probably observed, doesn't delete itself if the user, say, accidentally closes the window. Maybe it uses a cookie on the user's computer to save their current shopping cart for an amount of time. So if, say, they drop back onto the site in 24 hours, their shopping cart is still right there.
Wondered why that happened.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So I think, does this class end at 2:50?
Yes, so yeah, so we are right at time right now, but thank you so much, Rob. This
Yeah,
is
sure thing.
just wonderful. And it's, you always create these thoughts that's like, oh, what? I really appreciate that aspect of it. And definitely, just kind of like making both, having fun with the work you do and having, designing a little bit of fun into your life. And, that's perfect. It's wonderful. So thank you so much, Rob. I just wanted to mention that tonight is a Kaifu night. And why don't I go ahead and share the screen?
Yeah, and I'll drop the link into the chat.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So for those of you who haven't ever heard of Kaifu, we are the Computer Human Interaction Forum of Oregon and Southwest Washington. And we've been around like 26 years. It's a group devoted to studying how people use computers. And tonight we're going to actually have a panel talking about how to move into user experience. So if you're thinking about ever getting a job in user experience, and Joe, your question of, kind of like, well, what do you do? It would be a great one to drop into. And they are free still. And you can see that Rob is going to be one of the panelists. But we're talking about with people that have come in adjacent industries, or, Rob started off as an industrial designer.
Yeah.
So he's an example. We're also talking to people who have, gotten master's degrees, and we're talking to people who have done just the boot camps that are available. And, of course, then Rob is also an instructor of user experience. So we're getting a pretty wide range. So if you're interested, go to Meetup, and just, you do have to register for it, and then you get the link sent to you, and that will be on Zoom tonight, and it starts at 6:30. So with that, I think we will, let's see, is there anything else in the chat? Cool. So yes, Joe says, if you need anyone to test drive any tools, he'd be happy to help you. So.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to look at the smart tool line, it's called One Key.
One Key. Okay. Very, very interesting. All right. With that, I think we're going to end the class. And thanks so much, everybody. And, thanks for joining us, Rob. And luckily, the internet held up. So I'm really thrilled about that. All right. So talk to you guys later. And I'll see you tonight, Rob.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye.
you.
Thanks.